As a photographer, you like to go out, you like to take some photographs. Maybe you're a street photographer, maybe you're more in the genre of photojournalism or documentary or travel. Whatever it is, what lens combination are you going to bring? Especially with film. Film is a little bit limiting with the lens selection because you can't just continuously turn the ISO up on your camera. Let me explain what I think are some great choices. Now, years ago, when I was just starting out in photography, the photographer that we all looked at was a guy named David Burnett. He was newspaper photographer of the year. He was magazine photographer of the year. The back of every photo magazine had a Kodak ad, and it was David Burnett, the photojournalist. And he was an amazing photographer, news photographer, covered the world. And I took a 1-week workshop with David Burnett in Maine Photographic Workshops, and I spent a week with him with some other classmates who turned out to be great photographers as well. One thing that David said was, unless you were shooting sports, you only needed 4 lenses. Now, back then, zoom lenses didn't really exist. Cameras weren't autofocus, and the zoom lenses that did exist were slow to focus, hard to use, slow to use, dark. No one used zooms. Everybody used prime lenses. That's really all there was. And according to David Burnett, this great photojournalist, he said you need 4 lenses. You need 28, 50, something around 100, or 105 if it's Nikon, something around 200 or 180 if it's Nikon. So those are the 4 lenses that David Burnett suggested, and I've kind of fallen into that a little bit. Now I'm using right here like a rangefinder, but this works the same on a Nikon SLR. So if you're going to travel and you're going to keep your camera kit to the minimal and you're going to have to carry it, so you want to maybe do this with 2 lenses. What 2 lenses are you going to take? So this is a 50 1.4. There's an advantage to a 50 and there's an advantage to it being 1.4. First off, the advantage of it being a 50, that's the normal perspective, so that's kind of how we see things, so there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to find that useful. And the advantage of it being faster, of a 1.4 lens in a 50 is not a lot more money. Now, with Leica, everything's expensive, but if it's a used Nikon lens, the 1.4 isn't that much more expensive than the F2. Just saying. So it allows you to shoot something in low light because at least you've got one 1.4 lens. So if I had a 50 and I was only bringing two lenses on this trip, I don't think a 35 is a great choice. They're a little bit similar, I would say, wouldn't you say? 35 and 50. If you're only bringing 2 lenses, these are too similar. So you're probably going to bring a 28. So this is a 28. Now, the funny thing about my 28 is it's a 2.8, f2.8. So I need a 1.4, but my 28 is 2.8, and somehow I'm happy with that. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't buy a 28 f2 and maybe even a 50 f2. F2 right across the board, that'd be kind of slick. Anyways, this is a great combo for most people. A 50mm lens, get that to be the fast lens, and a 28mm lens. I mean, if you're photographing those old streets in little towns in Italy, if you're walking down the coast in Portugal photographing fishermen, a 50 and a 28, you're going to have a lot of fun. And that's the combination I think most people should be going with. Of course, because you're taking 2 lenses and I'm showing 4 lenses, there's got to be another option. So this is the second option. Maybe this is better if you're doing street photography and you don't mind being in people's faces. So instead of the 50-28, let's go with a 25 and a 35. So again, it wouldn't be a bad idea if the 35 was a 1.4. Mine's an f2, but if you had a 35 1.4, at least in low light, you could take something. And again, my 25mm is a 2.8. So for some reason, it's slow. Now, Leica doesn't make a 25, they make a 24, but that's around the same idea. And with a rangefinder, you need to put the little viewfinder on it, which is a screwy concept at the best of times. Now, an SLR user would think this is nuts, but let me explain it to you. I'm focusing through the viewfinder, I'm metering through the viewfinder, but I have to move my eye to the sit on top viewfinder to compose because it's showing the frame lines for the 25. That is strange. It's hard to justify it and not think you're a goofball. Anyways, that's how it is with a rangefinder because it doesn't have the built-in viewfinders for a lens that wide. So you focus, you meter, you recompose. Not a big issue for landscape, maybe not a big issue for street photography, but you'd hate to be at a fast-moving, street activity and you have to focus, recompose. You'd have to start to just guesstimation focus maybe at that point. But this is a great combo, 35 and 25. If you don't mind being in the face a little more, right? Because now I've got to get, if I want to get close in my final picture, if I want to get close, I've got to take a step closer with the 25 than I do with the 28. But this is a kind of a nice combo too. Two lenses, a 25 and a 35. You could do a lot of great photos with this. Now, you can do a lot of great photos with any camera, and you can do a lot of great photos with an SLR. The advantage of a Leica or a rangefinder is they're a little bit lighter and a little bit smaller, and the lenses are nice and small. So if you're going to go and travel the world and you're going to bring two lenses, now, if I was going to travel the world, I would probably bring more than two lenses. And the people who say, well, would you travel the world, what one lens would you bring? Well, if I was traveling the world, I wouldn't just bring one lens. Maybe I'd be like Steve McCurry, the great National Geographic photographer, the Afghan girl, maybe a 24-70. I know that's what he uses now. Maybe that's what I'd use, a 24-70. But if I was traveling the world, I think I would bring two lenses at least, 35, 25. This is with the combo that I like. But I think for most people, they're better off with this little bit longer combo. 28, that's still wide, and a 51.4, that's probably better. The 51.4, if you're doing portrait type work, there's a lot you can do with a 50 compared to the 35. It might be just a little bit too wide, the 35, but you'll be definitely in their face. It depends exactly your style and it depends what you're shooting, but these two combos, I think for most people out in the world, travel, enjoying photography, trying to take great pictures for themselves, I think you can really do a great job with one of these combos. Now, would you bring all four? Oh boy, that's a lot of camera gear to carry around. I don't think I'd bring all four. Maybe if I brought all four, I'd leave half it at the hotel and go out with the two. Now, what case do you put it all in? So this is a Billingham case. This does not exist anymore. This is called the L2. They haven't made it for years. I think they make something similar called an S3 now. But Billingham canvas bag made in the UK. I've had this for decades and decades. All photographers have too many camera bags, but this is one I've really used a lot. And it basically holds one camera and another lens, one camera with a lens and another lens. And I have a flash in here in case I need it for fill flash. I never use that. I never turn it on, but I do carry it with me. So, a few rolls of film, maybe a water bottle, a camera, and a lens, and off you go. This is a great case. Doesn't really exist like this anymore. The only disadvantage, it has two disadvantages, is first one is the strap is not quite long enough. It is adjustable, but even at the maximum, it could be another couple inches longer. And the strap is sewn on the ends here. It doesn't wrap right underneath, which is kind of a little more secure. Like the Dom key cases, they're nice too, and the strap goes right underneath. But this is a Billingham case. It's been fantastic. As I said, the strap isn't quite long enough. And the other thing is it's not quite deep enough. Now, I have had camera equipment stolen before, but only ever from my desk at the newspaper when I went out to lunch. So I have never had anything stolen from a bag. So if you were in some market in the third world, I would say, I wish this was a little deeper, but in the reality of it, I've never had anything stolen out of the bag. No one has reached in and grabbed a lens and ran. So maybe it's just a fear that I have that is not realistic. Little Billingham case, there's other brands too. Think Tank makes a nice case. You're traveling light, you've got a little bit of gear, one camera, two lenses. Maybe if you bring the other gear, you leave it at the hotel and you use it tomorrow. But you can't go wrong keeping it light, going out there. Just picture yourself on the streets in small Italian towns or in Portugal on the coast, photographing fishermen, having a coffee, laughing and joking. You don't look like some photo nerd. You don't look like some doofus with all this camera gear hanging all over them. I mean, they know you're a tourist. You can pick a tourist out anywhere, but you just don't look as obnoxious with all that gear. So keep it nice and light. An SLR, one lens, two lenses, away you go. take great photos, enjoy it. It's all about the user experience. It's not about the gear. You need gear that's well enough made so that when you get to the ends of the world, it's going to work when you get there. But there's lots of cameras like that. It doesn't have to be a Leica. It doesn't have to be a rangefinder. SLR, a Nikon, a Canon. There's lots of great brands out there. Just go out and enjoy it and have a great user experience and enjoy the click of the shutter and winding the film and composing it in your mind and composing it in real life and chatting with the subject and having a coffee and just enjoying photography. That's the key. I mean, we're not trying to make any money on this anymore. Those days are long gone. I'm sure there's photographers using rangefinders and trying to film rangefinders and trying to make a living. I'm sure there's some, but I don't think there'd be too many. And certainly news photographers, photojournalists, documentary photographers, that ship has long sailed. We are just trying to have fun, enjoying some of the premium gear that we've acquired over the years. Take nice, sharp photos, enjoy them, enjoy the experience, have that coffee. Or maybe it's a cold drink. Either way, it works fine. Just saying.